Thanks so much to everyone for joining us for another session of our Career and Identity Intersections. This week's session is about first-generation college alumni. As we get started, I'm going to go over a few virtual communal agreements. We ask that all of our participants go ahead and mute your microphone. This will just limit any audio issues or potential for audio problems or weird echoes or anything like that during our time together today. You are more than welcome to go ahead and turn on your closed captioning. This will make sure that you catch every word of everything that our panelists are going to share with you today. As a participant, you can choose to keep your video on or off. Our presenters are welcome to use both their audio and video. If we do experience any audio issues for our panelists, we will ask them to turn off their camera, but you're welcome to start out our time together today using both your audio and your video. If you have any questions for our panelists, we ask that you ask them via the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen so that everybody can see them. If there's something super timely and pressing, we'll ask it during the session. If not, we'll save it to our Q&A section at the end. To let everyone know, we are recording this presentation. We will be sharing this on our Career Services website and on social media platforms. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce today's moderator, Kevin Wright. Kevin Wright currently serves as the inaugural Black and African American Program Coordinator and the Interim Assistant Director in our Student Diversity and Social Justice Office, and he will be serving as our moderator today. So I will go ahead and pass it over to you, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate that introduction. Hello again, everyone. My name is Kevin Wright. I use he, him, his pronouns. And yeah, I work in the Office of Student Diversity and Social Justice. This panel is going to focus on first-gen identities, and we get to hear from some industry leaders and rising professionals that are all first-gen college graduates. So if we could go to the next slide, I want to introduce our panelists. So first and foremost, we have Hector Lerma. And then we have Jen Huynh, and then we have Kaylee Blessert, and then Theo Nichols. So as we, yes, thank you for waving, everyone. So we're going to move into the first question, which is, where do you work, and what is your role, and then what does your day-to-day look like? So I would like to start us off in order with this first question. So Hector, if you could, please take it away.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, everybody. As said, my name's Hector. I currently work as a middle school science and AVID teacher in Southeast San Diego. I also happen to be this upcoming year's middle school science department chair, and I'll be going into my 5th year of teaching. A day-to-day, honestly, right now looks very interesting, especially with online learning. March 13th is still the day that I remember leaving my classroom behind and walking out thinking, what are we going to do with teaching from now until who knows when? And so right now my day looks like waking up, going on my computer, trying to find resources. What things can I do to support my department? What ways can I prepare them? So when fall comes, we're in a very crucial time where we can change education as we know it. And so I want to make sure that we do what's best to provide the best education for each and every single one of my students. And yeah.
All right, Jen.
All right, I'll go ahead. Hey, y'all. My name is Jen Huynh. I work at Pratt & Whitney, which is an aerospace aviation company focused on propulsion systems. In general English, that would be creating jet engines. I use pronouns she, her, hers. My role is I'm an account specialist, and what that means is I buy the parts for jet engines, for commercial and military engines. And my day-to-day is really all over the clock. I work with all international suppliers around the world, including like Spain, Italy, Vietnam, South Korea, Mexico. So whatever time they're on, I'm sometimes on, and I answer emails, I do meetings with them, and I track delivery of those parts to make sure that our customer, which are like Boeing, Airbus, anyone who buys a engine that goes on a plane, can get their parts on time and build the engines. Right now, with the aerospace industry is interesting because commercial airlines have really been hurt a bit, but our military programs are still going despite the pandemic, and we're taking it day to day. So thank you.
I guess I will go next. My name is Kaylee. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And right now I work at a small marketing startup in Atlanta. I do demand generation. So I do a lot of digital marketing stuff. So Google Ads, I do a lot of email marketing, some website building, stuff like that. So my day-to-day can be pretty varied. For example, today I spent probably 4 or 5 hours writing an email campaign. Yesterday I was working on building a landing page for one of our clients. I primarily work in B2B right now, but I've worked in B2C before. So that's about where I'm at right now.
And hello, everyone. My name is Theo Nichols. I use he, him, his pronouns. I currently work at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas as a residential life coordinator for the upperclassmen complex. And I also serve as a consultant for Empire Solar Energy Company housed out of Vegas. And what my current role, what I do, so just more so on the lines of my time as an RLC, a residential life coordinator. I supervise students and make sure that they have a holistically sound and developmental housing experience, making sure that our students grow and develop not just academically, but professionally and personally as well. And then with some of my day-to-day and what that would look like per se is more on just really supporting our students and making sure that they're given the, the knowledge, skills, and abilities and the tools to be able to successfully navigate this really interesting and turbulent time that we're kind of in right now, just due to everything that's happening with the country, the media, so on and so forth. My goal and my main mission is to support our students through that and making sure that they are equipped to be able to handle everything that is happening. Outside of that, I deal with all the, if anything happens within our buildings, any form of conduct, that's kind of all other little nuances that kind of fall underneath my role.
All right, everyone, thank you for those introductions. And something that I wanted to mention that I honestly totally forgot to mention in the first place, so I apologize. Some people are probably wondering why we use Alumnx for this session. Some people on social media thought it was a typo and sent us messages. And then I can assure you all it definitely was intentional. And the reason why we do that is to be inclusive of different genders, because alumni, which is the typical term, usually refers to a multiple people, either male or female, that graduated. And then there's alumnus that refers to just men, and then alumna, which just refers to just women. So Alumnx pays homage to the folks that are non-binary, gender non-conforming, or are transgender as well, to make sure that those folks who also have been putting in the hard work to achieve degrees, such as the panelists on this session, are also recognized as well. So that's why we say Alumnx. So I just wanted to bring that into this space to make sure that everyone was on the same page and that it was an intentional use of the word and not just a typo. So moving on to the next question for career trajectory, what has your career path looked like thus far? And this time, let's start with Kaylee, and then you will be able to choose who you would like to pass it on to after you're done answering.
Okay. So far, I graduated college in 2017. So I've been working for about 2.5 years now. I was very lucky to get hired pretty soon after I graduated. I started out as a copywriter, so doing some of the same things that I do now, but at a much more basic level. In my first role as a copywriter, I just found myself not really feeling fulfilled. I was really excited to put my college degree to work. There were definitely times where I was wondering if I was making the right decision in terms of my major. But so as I started to kind of develop in that role, I started thinking about what my other interests were and kind of taking the initiative to teach myself things and learn new skills so that I could advance to where I am now. And my current role, I think, is a much better fit for my skills and my interests, and definitely feels a lot more fulfilling and invigorating than copywriting did at the beginning. So should I answer the second question as well?
Not yet.
Okay, cool. Does anybody want to go next? Okay, how about Hector? You can go next.
Got it. Thank you. So my career path has looked very interesting. So the traditional teacher route usually goes, you finish your undergrad with your bachelor's degree, and then you decide to move on to your credential. In your credential, there are some schools that have a 1-year program, some schools have 2-year programs, some schools have, like my school has a 1.5-year master's and credential program. I went the non-traditional route through Teach for America. Through Teach for America, I was able to immediately jump into the classroom while at the same time getting my credential. And I will dive more into that with my one mistake that I made. That will be for later. But it was one that I definitely enjoy. And until this day, one of my favorite things that I was able to develop through TFA was my leadership skills. As I entered my career as a teacher, I was thrown in literally into the pool without knowing how to swim, and I had to either swim or I was going to sink. I was very fortunate that I had 3 amazing women mentors, and all of them were able to provide me with support. And as the years have gone by, I knew that my place in the classroom wasn't just educating my students, but also leading those around me to provide, again, what is a quality education for our students. And so I remember applying for my first department chair position as an elective teacher, because I teach a college prep course known as AVID, very popular in San Diego and across the nation. And when I applied to my elective position the first time, I was told that I was too young, and I was barely entering my 3rd year teaching, and that I needed to develop more skill. At the end of my 3rd year teaching, however, I reapplied for the position and I was able to get it. And the last year I learned that I really wanted to hone in my skills more within my department, which was science. The reason I got into teaching was because my mom was an amazing teacher and I really loved science. And so I wanted to do something as soon as I finished school. And I was able to receive that position literally a month ago. And it's being a department chair allows you to really get to support those leaders that are surround you, to be able to have them feel like, teaching is a powerful tool. Like, you are literally educating the future of tomorrow, and we cannot just let it happen passively. We got to actively hone in on those minds. And so it's been steady, up and going, and I've been very fortunate to have people that have led me to where I am today. I will go ahead and pass the question off to Jennifer.
All right, so I graduated in 2016 with a degree in business, and prior to that, I actually did a few internships. Right out of high school, I actually I was very proactive and told my guidance counselor, I want to find an internship. Like, I don't know in what, just give me anything. If I can make money, great. If not, we'll figure something out. And I actually got somehow, like, through 6 degrees of separation, into a law firm as like a assistant, just helping out with patents and stuff. I started a business in my freshman year because my school has a program where you're put into a team of students. It's for a class, but you also get $3,000. So I got experience in doing that. I also did consulting for a marketing firm. I did a numerous amount of campus jobs and an internship in a nonprofit. So leading up to supply chain was kind of just a crazy path. I did something called the Inroads program, and that's a national program where underrepresented populations of students who are achieving well in college, a lot of them are first-gen students or students of color. They are placed in corporate internships in their local community, close to home or close to their school. And through that program, I got placed at Pratt & Whitney, did my internship there, and I then got hired full-time, like, to my surprise, for a supply chain leadership rotational program. And a rotational program is for people like me who are kind of indecisive about my career track, to try 4 different roles in 2 years, 6 months at a time, in different roles within the same department. So I worked in quality, where I had to travel every week to Georgia and Michigan to go learn about how do we make sure that the parts that we're putting in the engine are compliant and people don't die. Then I did a buyer role, which is similar to the role that I'm doing now, where I learned the basics of how do you purchase parts, how do I sign off on contracts and different orders to order the parts. Sourcing I did, and that actually turned into a project management role. And then finally, my last rotation was planning, like how do I make sure that the different parts that we buy are bought on time. My current role now is one that I placed out into. So at the end of the program, we interviewed with different managers who were looking for the leadership program graduates, and I'm here now. And during all of that time, I also been very active in my community in general. I get involved with Inroads as an alumni to give back to the organization that placed me and really helped me develop as a community and corporate leader. I was president of an employee resource group, which is the equivalent of like campus and orgs at the corporate level. You get to join a club and get to lead it like you would your own campus organizations. And I'm also really involved in Delta Sigma Pi, which is a business fraternity that helped me develop my business and soft skills to be able to apply into the workplace. So I've only been graduated 4 years. I'm right now also in grad school for my MBA and my master's in organizational psychology. So it's kind of exciting to also be the first in my family to go that route too. So it's been only 4 years, but there's a lot to go, I guess, after that. And finally, I'll pass it off to Theo.
Hello again, everyone. So, oof, my career path has been interesting. So I've gone a little bit of everywhere, and I feel like I've done a little bit of everything, essentially. So I graduated with my higher ed degree in 2018. Currently, now pursuing as well a higher degree, excuse me, a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. So definitely understand the org psych there. I feel you on that. Really, so where I've gone essentially just throughout my journey and throughout my life really is that I've really seeked a lot of guidance and a lot of mentorship because I kind of started college, did not know what I wanted to do. I just knew that if I wanted to, at least I was told, at least if I wanted to secure a better life and, you know, make a little bit of money, then go to college, get a degree, get a job, so on and so forth, essentially, but just didn't really know where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. But then my career path has really been a lot of people just investing their time and energy really into me and helping to bring out the strengths within me essentially to help me be able to see, you know, things that I was just naturally good at. And then I kind of started to gravitate my educational journey essentially, as I could say, essentially just kind of to that path, right? So then that led me to doing hospitality, and then that also led me to my higher ed degree. And then it was like, well, Theo, you know, you're really passionate about helping and developing people. You're really good with working with businesses. You're able to see two, you know, disparate ideas, put them together and make them work collectively. You know, have you considered, you know, a degree in or organizational psychology? I was like, you know, never thought about it, never honestly even heard of it. And then I just started to love my program. I started to love everything about it. And really what kind of came out of it was just understanding my strengths and having somebody be able to see that within me, bring it out, and then help me see a career path that would be best fitting to that. So now every day when I go into work, that I get a chance to, you know, literally apply what I'm learning in the classroom currently to my role as a residential life coordinator with students, even not necessarily in an in-person setting, but even on a virtual setting as well too. Just being able to come up with those creative ways to be able to engage our students and engage, you know, businesses that I work with. And even I consult for a solar group as well too. And just even being able to just kind of help them show how they can increase their business and help them be able to have a better impact and efforts to better help people is just something that I really live for. But it really did start with, you know, mentorship and just that guidance and just being able to see somebody who was truly invested and wanted to see me succeed that really helped my career path grow to where it is today.
Thank you, everyone, for your awesome insight. And the next question is, what is one mistake you have made in your career journey and what did you learn from it? Now, some of you already kind of mentioned it or were foreshadowing it, which I greatly appreciate. So if you would care to expound on, you know, that mistake or that experience, that would be great. And I would love for us to start with Jennifer.
All right, so I cried in my internship, my first big break in corporate America. I got yelled at by someone because I accidentally hit a button in the system that deleted something, and then I just started crying, and I didn't really understand, like, I just focused on the fact that I did something wrong, and I started crying, and they had to like take me into the bathroom and be like, get it together. Like, you didn't, like, it's fixable, don't worry. And I think that was the lesson, like, that any mistake that you could make, even if you're in a new environment you don't know, like, I was worried I had just blown my internship out because I accidentally hit something, the wrong button, but it can be fixed. And I know that very much now, that like you could really, the way our systems work, the only way you could really like mess up is if it's not fixable, and everything in the system can be fixed. So it also taught me to be adaptable and how to handle stressful situations. My manager did see me start crying, but she mentored me through and saying like, oh, it's okay. Like, here's how we fix it. And it really helped me change the mindset of like, if I make a mistake, as long as I know how to fix it or can find the resources and make the intended effort to fix it, it'll be okay at the end of the day. Because I still got hired after that internship, and I laugh about it now because I think it makes a lot of the like mentees that I work with feel better, that like, yeah, it's okay to feel bad about messing up, but you can fix it, you can change your mindset, and that's what they remembered instead of the crying. So I will pass it off to Hector.
Thank you, Jennifer. So for me, so as I mentioned, I started my road off with Teach for America. When I joined Teach for America, essentially, if we were in a quarter system, I went to school at UCLA, graduated in 2016, and when you start your TFA experience, you are still in school. And so my mistake that I made is that I came in with taking no education classes, knowing very little about how the education policy works in the United States and California. And I wish I would have, like, if I had the inkling that I wanted to go into education, I wish I would have taken education classes or even majored in education through my bachelor's degree. I got my bachelor's degree in anthropology. And when I jumped into taking my master's courses, National University did a really great job of preparing me and ensuring, and then my school did a really good job mentoring me to ensure that I kind of caught up with everything. But it really makes a difference if you are able to take at least one education course early on or in the middle of your undergrad journey. And if that's something you choose to do later, like, the more ways you can be informed, it doesn't even have to be formally. You can go online and read on it, the better it's going to be. Not only that, but like, your first year teaching is mistake after mistake after mistake. Like, I still remember, I would implement a certain lesson a certain way. The kids didn't like it. I got their feedback. All right, let's try it again. The amount of times that I have changed the way that I manage my classroom and work through with my students, with middle schoolers, has been endless. And that's okay. Because if you are able to be vulnerable and tell kids, hey, I messed up today, like, let's reset tomorrow, the students will appreciate it and will feel connected to you when it's time for them to make a mistake and to change things. So yeah, lots of mistakes with teaching, and it's okay. That's how you learn. I'll pass it over to Kaylee.
Okay, so probably the biggest mistake that I think that I've made in my career journey is thinking that I had to take a job or accept an opportunity because it was offered to me. When I graduated, I was, I hit the ground running, probably applied for 100 jobs like a week in the few weeks after I graduated, and struck out a lot. Had an interview with a company that turned out to be a complete scam. Luckily, I caught it before anything happened, but I was so fixated on getting a job that I wasn't really thinking about what I wanted that job to look like and if it would fulfill me and make me happy. And I'm very lucky that the first job I had was one that I did enjoy. I actually just recently left it in March. But I kind of had this feeling that like nobody is really happy with what they do, at least at first. And it takes a few tries. But then I was meeting people who were in a similar place in their careers, and they just loved their job and they loved what they did. And that was a really big wake-up call for me, because while I liked my job, it wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I thought, I just, I accepted this job and I'm just kind of stuck with it. So to kind of round that off, I think my mistake was not really listening to myself and thinking about what I wanted in a job or in an opportunity. Just because someone says, you know, like, we'd like to offer this to you, doesn't mean you have to take it. If you thought you wanted it and then you get it and you don't want it, that's okay too. It's okay to change your mind and talk to yourself and think it over and talk to others and see if that's really the path that you want your career or your life to take. Kind of like Jen said, most things can be undone. So, you know, just gotta think about like what's gonna make you happy, really. It's not everybody goes to work and suffers every day. So, okay, so I guess I will pass it on to Theo.
Cool. Thank you. Mistakes? No, I don't think I made any mistakes. No, I'm just kidding. I made plenty of them, y'all. So one mistake that I would say that it's probably been the biggest like aha moment for me is just really learning how to advocate for yourself. So I worked a few jobs where I was honestly just, not to be too long-winded or anything, but I was just appreciative of the fact that somebody liked me and offered me the job. I was like, oh my goodness, you like me? Like, yeah, like, but I was just willing to take whatever they were willing to give to me, essentially, because, you know, I'm like, I'm better than where I was yesterday. But at the same time, too, I started working with other people who, you know, I noticed that, like, I was like, I'm doing a whole lot more and getting paid a whole lot less. And so I'm sitting here just like, and then I'm like, not only am I doing more and getting paid less, but I'm doing my job better than you. Like, I mean, not to be just, you know, like big-headed or anything, but it started to just really sink in with me. But then I feel like when I was in school, I learned how to, you know, I learned how to expand upon my natural strengths, but, you know, nobody had that conversation with me. Well, like, you have developed all these skills and all these abilities to be able to, you know, get you to that next level, but how can you articulate that and then be able to articulate that in a way so you can monetize that, essentially, in efforts to ask for an increased salary? Because just because what they offer to you is not necessarily what you have to settle for. And I just didn't know how to have that conversation. So one of the biggest mistakes, again, I would make is, you know, not knowing how to advocate for myself, but then just through trial and error, bumps and bruises, you know, with all the money left on the table, I'd probably have me a new car right now. But you know what? We learn and we grow and we move on from it. But yes, definitely being able to learn how to advocate for yourself, even if not even from a monetary standpoint, but even for a better work condition standpoint. If there's things that you know you need to be able to produce and do a better job in efforts to serve whoever it is that you're serving, or be able to do your job better, just being able to learn how to speak up and advocate for yourself in a way that, you know, that your employer, your boss, supervisor, whomever would be receptive to. So it's really having and understanding how to frame that conversation in that way. So advocate for yourself.
Yes, strong words by our awesome panelists. I hope the folks in the back are paying attention. And, you know, y'all's stories are very meaningful and impactful. And it actually is a great segue to our next topic, which is about employer dynamics. You know, many of you have had some ups and downs, you know, some very interesting situations, some very messed up situations. And, you know, that takes me to my next question, which is, how has your identity impacted the type of employer you work for? So we are focusing on the identity of being a first-gen Alumnx. And even then, we are also very big about intersectionality. So if you want to talk about, you know, first gen as it intersects with, you know, gender, race, sexuality, socioeconomic status, military status, you know, et cetera, that's totally fine. But we definitely are curious to see, you know, provide us some insight about that. And this time I would like to start with Theo.
Awesome. So yeah, so my identity, so I definitely can't by any means, you know, discount like the intersection of my identity to even include the fact that I'm also prior military as well too, served for 10 years. I think how that really impacted the type of like employer I work for is just really, I had to kind of break down that understanding of that, you know, when you hired me, you didn't just hire, you know, what you see, like, you know, you hired somebody who, has multiple different different parts of their identity essentially, and like all of those need to be respected and valued in efforts for me to be able to perform to the best of my abilities, right? Understanding the fact that like if my pay is late, like coming from the fact that yes, I am a first in college student, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, water, and shelter, like that's what I need. I need to be able to have money essentially, or I need to be able to have a means to be able to secure these things for me when I was somebody who dealt with food insecurity, and for someone who essentially just may not understand that, it may be kind of a hard relatability factor essentially. And so just having a way and trying to find a way to have that conversation where they are understanding of it's been a bit of a difficult journey essentially. But I do appreciate the fact that people that I do work for are open to have the conversation and hear me out and understand that yes, I am identify as a Black male, but I'm also a first-gen student. I'm a military. I am differently abled. Like there are different things about me essentially that need to, from a work standpoint, need to be respected and valued in efforts for me to perform at my best. So yeah, so it's been an interesting journey, but we're still navigating on through it. And I will popcorn it off to Jennifer.
All right, and quick reminder, am I answering the first one or both?
The first one.
Okay. So I identify first gen is very important to me. I really I'm proud of the fact that I'm the first one in my family to get a bachelor's. So I always make sure that people know, and I also make people know that I'm from the Inroads program, because that's something it has that name recognition at the company that that because it's placing underrepresented populations of students in corporate America. It's yeah, I came from the program that did that. I also identify as a woman and Asian American. So all these are important to me, and I've made it very clear as I came on and with my involvement in the employee resource groups. I get involved with the interns employee resource group and helping develop them and make sure that they understand not to sell themselves short, to advocate for themselves, all the things that we've been talking about so far. I'm also an active volunteer in the Asian American Leadership Forum, and we talk about these issues. We have these conversations with each other, and there's a community there. And I made sure that when I joined this company, not only did I get the opportunity to be able to experience what the culture is like as an intern, but from a work perspective, but from the community perspective too, because we have these communities with so many people who also want to make sure that they don't have to leave a part of themselves at home when they come to work. It's still an uphill battle. I mean, the company I work for has been around for 95 years this year, about to be 100. There's with many companies right now, we're learning how to be better at making sure that we have diversity, equity, and inclusion at our workplace. So the fact that they let me be a voice for it and be a leader in it through the employee resource groups also helped make that decision, and we can build a community around it so that we're not truly alone, even if we might feel that way walking into the job. All right, I'll pass it off to Kaylee.
Okay, thanks. So in terms of intersectionality, I guess, so obviously I am a first generation college grad. I'm also a woman. And I think in terms of how those things affect the type of employer that I look for, I think being a first generation graduate kind of instilled in me this thirst, or this hunger to kind of prove myself. College was always an expectation for me, both a personal one and for my parents. And I really wanted to prove that I could, finish it. I could get the degree. I could move on and I could get a job with it, all that good stuff. So I kind of extended that into my job search. I want a job that not only I can be proud of, but that my family can be proud of, and see that all of this hard work and all of these efforts we put into were worth it and kind of paid off. So I also really look for representation. I am really lucky now to work for a company that has really strong female leadership, which is something that I value a lot. And it also has representation for people who are kind of self-starters, which I think is part of being a first-generation college student. There are a lot of things that you have to figure out that maybe you don't have the familial experience to work out. So you kind of have to figure it out on your own a lot, which can be lonely, but also exciting, I guess. Okay, Hector.
Thank you. So for me, so a couple of my intersectionalities I identify as the first generation. Although I did mention my mom is a teacher, she did her teaching in Mexico, and so my parents are first generation immigrants, and so I'm considered like 1.5 generation, and I'm the first one in my family to navigate the higher education system here in the United States. Along with that, I'm a cisgender male. I identify as queer. And when I am looking at when I was looking at what school will potentially hire me, I wanted a school where I knew I could grow in, and that would not only accept me, but like push me to be the person who I knew I was in the classroom. And so going off of that, representation is very important for our students. And I am like, my employer knows that I will call them out and call them in to the conversations. I work in a charter school where almost every single person in that building is every single person who goes to school is either Latinx, Black, Filipinx, anything, mostly people of color. But all the teachers, except for maybe a handful of us, do not identify within that. And so my students look up at their teachers and they don't see representation. And so I have been able to engage in these conversations with my employers, with my administrators, being like, we need to do something on our campus, especially now, because we are not serving our kids the way that we should. And I've been very fortunate that with the leadership that I've been given and with the position that I've had and being vocal about it and having some people who support me, my administration is listening. They are taking into account, where my background is, where I'm coming from, and I'm providing them with like resources and facts, and they are listening, and they're finally opening their eyes and realizing some of the policies that we have in our school are racist. They're not okay. We need to make a change, and we need to make our students feel comfortable coming into our campus. There's a lot of really great things about my school that I appreciate. For example, we provide students with technology, with bus passes. We're able to ensure that each of our students are okay. We managed to get in contact with every single parent during this COVID crisis, and we have a lot of people who really care about our students. But the job's not done. We have a lot more to do, and I'm very fortunate that my administrators and my school are using my identities as a way to like understand. And I don't feel pressured by it. I know that it's not my business to educate other people on people of color and Black issues. I understand that, but I am okay with that. And as long as that relationship is open and transparent, having employers that listen to you is super important.
Thank you for that. And, Hector, I definitely appreciate your insight talking about, the racialized policies that you had to address with your employer. And I think that that'll be a great segue into our next question, which is, how do you navigate workplace politics, and does your identity determine how you show up? So every industry has its own politics. Certain things are made political, even though they don't have to be. So I'm very curious to see how you all have had to deal with workplace politics. And Hector, I would like to start off with you, please.
Yeah, so one of the things, I'll start off with this. Teaching is political. Teaching is political 100%. Every single day you walk into that classroom, you have to understand that your biases and your position of where you come from, everything that you've grown up with is going to show, period. As my students would say, period. Like, it's going to happen, right? And so it's super important that we as teachers, as educators, have to listen to our students, and most importantly, the needs of our community. Our community is engaged with politics every single day. Whether people are actively doing it or passively doing it, it doesn't matter. living in Southeast San Diego, living in South San Diego, but working in Southeast San Diego, those are very different populations. South San Diego is comprised mostly of Latinx and Hispanic people. Southeast San Diego is thoroughly mixed. We have a Somali population, we have Black population, we have Hispanic, Latinx population, and a large Filipino population as well. And it's important for us to, as teachers, to be able to understand the backgrounds of our students, the policies that are harming them, and with that, openly talk about it. And that's still something that is very difficult to do in the education world. I saw a post on Instagram that said, and I'm trying to remember who said it, but somebody said that a lot of educators have a really hard time talking about race and ethnicity and these policies because these people care about kids. Like, the educators truly love working with kids. Most educators do. So it's really hard for educators to listen to someone to come up to them and be like, hey, what you said is kind of wrong. We got to fix that. And for them, they're like, oh my God, but I love kids. How is that possible? So it's really difficult. But what's most important is to have an open mind and make sure that when you are engaging in those politics, build a brave space. I don't like the idea of safe spaces personally. I think that every single space you walk in, you can't guarantee that people will be safe, but you can provide a brave space for people to listen to. And so when it comes to, navigating workplace politics, you got to make sure there's a brave place for people to talk about it, because that's how progress is made. And I'll pass it over to Theo.
Oh, I was actually writing. I was over here writing notes. Big facts. Big facts. That I felt that. Yeah. So, how do you navigate workplace politics? So I am very much so unapologetically Black when I walk into any space that I'm in, because I have to realize that, like, the identities that I hold, that people also look up to me for guidance as well too. So I do have students who, can see a lot of themselves within me, essentially. So I have to be aware of how I show up and be able to make a space, for those to be able to thrive in all aspects, again, not just academically, but professionally and personally. So one thing that I do is I just find out ways of how to frame the conversation in ways that people are going to be receptive to, because I also do agree that, like, we also need to create a space where people can be able to talk, because a lot of times they tend to want to stray away from the conversation because they think it's turbulent, but I'm like, no, we need to have this conversation. We need to work through this. We need to talk about it. But also a firm believer that, also we need to really truly listen with an act of love, because we are given 2 eyes, 2 ears, but only 1 mouth for a reason. And I tell my students that, I tell anybody that I work with, that is like, because we need to be able to provide a space and get a deeper understanding in the sense of really what's going on, what's happening, why is it that you're navigating, or why is it that you're thinking this way, what's the end result, begin with the end in mind, essentially. So I'm like, let's create this space where we can be able to make change happen, but then also, what is the end result, right? Like, what are we trying to get? Is it just going to be pointless conversations where we're just not going to get anywhere? Are we actively working towards change, essentially, but addressing that in this space? And so I believe that, like, it's kind of like one of my duties, essentially. It's a burden. I mean, I don't always necessarily have to, because you have people that, choose sometimes to be silent and not say anything, but I'm a big believer in disrupting the culture of silence, essentially, because that's how we really and truly do make change. And it does take a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot of bit of work, essentially, in order to make that happen. And sometimes, it's amazing to have other people who share, not even necessarily the same identities as you, but at least believe in your mission and your value, regardless on however it is that you identify, to be able to change some of those workplace politics. But then also when they're receptive to your own identities and they see how important it is, and how by being able to make that change can really make our workplace better for everyone, is like such a beautiful thing. So I always keep that in mind as I navigate any conversations that I'm having with people, and as I'm like just learning about the work that it is that I do and how my identities show up. I keep that at the forefront and then proceed accordingly. And I will pass it off to Jennifer.
Ooh, I tried to ask in a leadership program that I did in the area that my work sponsored me to go to. We talked about workplace politics, and I think I asked the question, can you opt out of it? Like, can you just not play in the workplace politics? And the answer wasn't a clear no, but it sounded like no. And it really is true, because unfortunately, like, if you don't participate it, or if you're silent on it, that's still an action. It still says something about the the vibe that you're giving off, or whatever the situation may be. So, and if you're not playing, someone else is, and it just becomes so convoluted and complicated. How I navigate it is I've had to like rely on mentors and trust my manager, and like be open and talk about it, saying like, hey, um, what's an example? Oh yeah, just like bringing up like DEI right now, or diversity, equity, inclusion, like that, even that is political right now, and how we handle it, and how we create solutions, and how we propose the solutions. And I was taught by my parents, similar to, and I could relate to the statement about how I'm just grateful to even have a job. I was taught to just like keep your mouth shut, don't ruffle up too many feathers, because then you might lose your job. But it's more important to have that brave space, as Hector was saying, and like be able to speak out and make it better, so that workplace politics isn't just like a cringy topic that you kind of feel shudders every time someone brings it up. It's I've navigated it by having people in different departments. Like, I could not tell you the number of, yes, I do ruffle the feathers. Like I got slapped on the wrist for talking about where are the initiatives to diversify our workforce, or to have different programs. We have stuff for gender. Why don't we have something for race or minorities? And I got my hand slapped for saying that in a meeting with the president of the company. But you know what? I'm glad I said it, because it just it was an important conversation to have. And I navigated through all the different, and just coping with other people on it too, because it feels good to know I'm not alone in thinking these things, and being able to be a leader and a voice in my company, even though I'm just like in my entry level role right now. I can say something and have it resonate, because then when the president retired, he remembered that I said that in the meeting, and that we were able to make some traction on it. It's accelerated right now, but like being first gen, having some of the different things in my culture kind of ingrained in me, I had to learn a lot to kind of like create and be in that brave space and say something and do something. And I know my name gets mentioned in both good and bad ways, but I still have my job. I'm still getting my work done, and I'm making my voice heard. So I navigate it with less fear than I did when I started at the company. And I'm going to keep ruffling the feathers going forward. And I think I'll pass it off to Kaylee on that.
Cool. So I think everybody has made a lot of really great points and kind of covered it pretty thoroughly. But I will say that I absolutely think that my identity and all facets of it determine how I show up to these kind of discussions. Like Theo said earlier, when you get hired or invited into a space, like they're not just hiring you to fill that role. They are also hiring, in my case, they're hiring a woman. They are hiring someone who is neurodivergent. They are hiring all of these different experiences and identities that I have. And to pretend that I could leave any part of that at the door when I come in is just naive. The decisions that I make, the way that I react to things is informed by the different parts of my identity. And I think, like they have all kind of said, the important thing in my experience when navigating these difficult discussions and navigating workplace politics is to come at it with the intention of listening and reaching a resolution. Because if you go in there without the intention of listening, you're just going to start an argument, and that's not really productive. You're not always going to change people's minds, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have the discussion. Because hopefully you will be able to create an environment where people can share ideas and learn things and kind of grow. And the discussions, especially in times like these, are vital to creating a workplace that is inclusive and that is welcoming and that is safe and empowers people to be who they are to the fullest extent. And to kind of create a brave space at work, as Hector so put it. I really like that term, brave space. It's really good.
All right, thank you all so much for your insight. That was dope. I've been taking notes on what y'all been saying this whole time. It's great. For the sake of time, phone's going off. Sorry about that. For the sake of time, I do want to be mindful of making sure that we do cover certain questions that haven't been answered. So we're going to skip the first one on this next slide about challenges and support, because throughout the entire session, you all have been bringing up multiple challenges that you have been facing or are currently facing. If not, you've already overcome them. But something that I definitely am interested in learning more about is what is something your current employer does well as it relates to diversity and inclusion. And I would like to start with Kaylee on this one.
Okay, I think this is a great question. A couple weeks ago, the founder and CEO of our company started a conversation about some current events, the protests and things like that, and came at it with good intentions, but I think was not maybe as well informed as she could have been about how to foster this kind of communication. Our team is pretty small, but I thought it was very noble that she wanted to have this discussion. And she took a step back the next day, sent us an email and was like, I wanted to start this conversation, but I didn't know how. And it was inappropriate of me to start it without being prepared to foster this discussion and have people share their experiences and their thoughts. So I think that is kind of an evolving process for us. Like I said, I haven't been there very long, but I see them making efforts whenever they are hiring new people, whenever things are changing in our city or in the nation, to bring different perspectives into it and open the conversation to people who may have been underrepresented or ignored in the past. I think they make it a point to make sure that everybody at our company has a voice, and that we are really looking at all sides of an argument or all sides of an experience to make sure that decisions that we make and actions that we take are well thought out, well conceived, and ultimately helpful rather than harmful. So I will pass it to Jen.
Okay, I'll be honest, it took us 10 days to get a statement out. And like I mentioned earlier, there's politics behind that. Another word that's fun in corporate America is bureaucracy. And just like the processes around, like I've been working on a task force. It became a secret task force because I got my hand slapped, but a task force to improve the policies and procedures at our company to improve diversity, equity, inclusion, and to make our culture and climate a better place for all. So like we've been working for it on a year and a half, and luckily like we were ready as soon as as current events came out. They were open and said, we have no idea what to do. And our diversity and inclusion department has been in and out staffed due to a variety of reasons. But they've acknowledged that they want to improve. They just appointed their new D&I lead today, and I'm very pleased with their selection because it's someone that actually has the knowledge. They've worked in talent and recruiting before, so we know that we're going to bring diverse talent in. And they do very well at letting us speak. Like, yes, I did talk about getting my hand slapped for saying something that may not be so cushiony in a president's meeting, but it led to a conversation after. It led to me being able to connect with the other leaders in the room who want to make a difference and talk about the policy and how do we make change and what does the ideal change look like. And they do a good job of reaching out for the resources. Like the president of the company reached out to all the presidents of the employee resource groups of all the different affinities that we have represented and asked for help. They are going to look for people who are certified or knowledgeable or subject matter experts on it, as opposed to promoting internally for this role going forward. I mean, they learned their lessons and they're going to evolve and grow for D&I, and I can feel it. And I'll pass it off to Theo.
Cool. So something that my employer is doing well when it comes to diversity and inclusion is really just allowing us to be able to have the space and the opportunity to be able to like talk and amplify our voices, right? And then not only just be that providing us the space, but then providing us the resources and tools to be successful, even throughout this, despite this kind of COVID-19 era of involvement, which we got to figure things out. We're just like, well, you know, the university has stated that this is the way that we're going to go about doing some things when it comes to even travel per se. But it's like at the same time too, it's like, what are we going to be able to do? And there's like, well, you know, the fact that our leadership is open to conversations versus just completely Xing off an idea. They're just like, well, if we can't do this, then what else can we do to better be able to provide support and guidance, you know, for our marginalized students here within housing and at the institution. So just the receptiveness of um really just the receptiveness of it is just saying that it's really coming a long way. I mean, I even got an article just about Juneteenth. Just I was like, wow. I was like, I never even like a couple days ago. A couple years ago, I'd have never got anything like this from like, you know, thinking about that from like my department or institution, but just seeing just the receptiveness behind it and really just seeing like that. I don't know if it's reactionary or being proactive. I'm like, either way, we still having a conversation, so it's cool. Like it's we hear like, so I appreciate it. So yeah, so that's one thing I would definitely say, that just the openness, and then you know they're not just allowing us the space but giving us the resources and tools to be successful. So that's pretty solid. And I will pass it off to Hector.
Yeah, thanks. Try to keep it short. Everyone has been saying, like, I'm really glad to hear like how things are evolving across your employers. One thing that I really love about educators is that they're willing to grow. Educators are willing to always expand, and for the most part. And one of the things that I have noticed with my employer is that, like I said, they're listening. They are open to conversations. We are currently in the a process of creating our equity team on our campus, and we're also hoping to hold a space for any Black, Indigenous, Native, or person of color in our school as like a space where they can have their conversations, where they can discuss their own issues and bring in their own initiatives, kind of in working with that equity team that is a little bit that's meant for everybody, and the other ones are more targeted. We're looking at also finding ways to welcome our parents on our campus, specifically our Black and Latinx parents. We want to make sure we bring them in, provide them with translation services as needed. We are engaging in these conversations as we speak. Like, that's what I really love. Like my school, although yes, we have a lot of things we need to grow in, they're also doing a lot of really great things to improve. And again, it goes back to like the importance of having an employer that listens and is willing to sit down and be like, okay, what do you have to teach me is so important.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. You know, we are going to go a little over time, but you know, things happen, is what it is. I can definitely hear the passion in your voices and definitely sense the passion in your stories, and that's great. And that's honestly what many folks have asked for in the past. For the last slide on advice, many of you have already spoken to the first question. So for the sake of time, do you want to move forward to the second question, which is, what are some pieces of advice you have with navigating the workforce as it relates to your most important identities? Many of you have already provided some very awesome sound advice. And if there's anything that you feel like you haven't touched base on, that you think folks would definitely need to know about or consider, you know, please use this time to, you know, share that. And I would like to start with Jen.
All right. Definitely like be keyed into emotional intelligence. I mean, coming into corporate America, and like my dad had worked in corporate America before, but he didn't really share with me a lot of, he just said, do your job, do your thing, like, and get it done. But I really found that I was able to do my job better and get more done and build relationships with people by just like being able to adapt to like different communication styles they had, or using the different things that I've learned in other leadership programs and Delta Sigma Pi, just like knowing how to gauge someone's leadership style or working style to be able to work with them. And how it related to my identity is because it helped me make sure that I didn't lose who I was or try to like bend too far into a direction. Like you can make bold statements at work and work with the people that you're trying to make the change with, as opposed to coming off like a coup. Like even though I've mentioned that my company may have things to work on, I recognize that they are very responsive with it, and like we've been able to work through a lot of the processes and work and have those conversations, as opposed to saying "Viva Revolution," let's take down everything. Which we want to do that, but we want to do it in a respectful and professional way. So like having emotional intelligence of yourself and who you are and being authentic to that, along with being able to work with and collaborate with those around you, are going to be able to let you bring your full self to work. It's definitely done that for me. Like I love where I work because they've challenged me and been able to allow me to grow as not just a professional in a technical way, but they also let me be a leader and be a voice in all of that. And as a result, like we've been able to work quickly on a lot of D&I stuff. So I'm excited for that, and definitely just be authentic with it. So I will pass it off to Hector.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what I think I've been saying quite often. Find an employer that's going to listen to you from the very first day you're there. Like, there are employers that will treat you as a human being. They exist. And it just unfortunately sometimes takes quite a bit of work to find them. And so it's okay to be patient. It's okay to take a gap year. It's okay to jump in right away. Just be mindful, like, of your space, where you are, and what you need, because your needs are just as important. And I'll pass it over to Kaylee.
Cool. So I will also kind of reiterate something that I said earlier, which is my biggest piece of advice would be to trust yourself. You're going to have to make so many decisions in your life, big and small. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like you can get advice, you can speak to mentors, but no one is going to be able to make a better decision for you in your situation than you are. And kind of leading into that, when you make mistakes, because you will, we all do, it's important to own them. No amount of hiding is going to make them go away. And most of the time you can fix them. They can be undone, they can be rectified, but it's really important to take ownership of them and take the opportunity to step up and say, hey, like I messed this up and I'm going to do better and I'm going to fix it. And this is how. It'll make you look really good. And at the end of the day, in my experience, it's going to make you feel better too, to know that you didn't shift the blame to someone else or hide from it. But really, I cannot reiterate enough how important it is to trust yourself. In terms of how it relates to my identity, I would say, like on a societal level, on an internal level, kind of everywhere you look, there will be people who doubt you because of your gender or because of your race or your orientation or your education level or your familial status. You really have to trust yourself and know that you are making the right decision as a culmination of your experiences and your knowledge. Cool. So I will pass it on to Theo.
Cool. So I will also kind of reiterate some things I stated earlier in our conversation, but just really know what you bring to the table and being able to best advocate for yourself. And then really when you actually are, when you do have a seat at the table, don't just, make things better for everyone else. Like just because now you have a seat and you have the ability to be able to make change, do it and make it better for everybody else that's coming, after you as well too. And then don't be complacent, like at work, make sure that you're always striving, for better. There's a quote that a mentor always told me. It's called good, better, best. It goes good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good gets better and your better gets best. And that's just the lifestyle you need to live, especially if you want to be, successful in any type of work that it is that you do. That's just kind of where it is. And that's how it related to my identities. I realized that, part of some of the identities I do share, from a societal standpoint does put me a few steps behind. So sometimes I have to work that much harder to show, why I am deserving of the role and the opportunities that I've been given. But then when I do that and I actually break through and I break free, essentially, then I make it better for everyone else that's coming behind me as well too. So they are coming in on equal footing.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Those are all the slides that we have. We're going to wrap this up. To our panelists, if you haven't already done so, if you feel comfortable, please put your contact information in the chat box so students can reach out to you, as well as other Alumnx. Again, this was Thursday Thoughts. This was put on by UNLV Career Services. So shout out to the staff at that office for coming up with this idea and then collaborating with my department, Student Diversity and Social Justice. Really appreciate it. And one more applause to our awesome panelists, Jen, Hector, Theo, Kaylee. You all were so amazing, and I really appreciate you all being able to be a part of this. This was great, and I really appreciate you all so much. But yeah, that's essentially it. So thank you all for joining us.